All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday, wherever you are watching from, whether it is live or elsewhere. It is exciting to be able to, not only talk about the subject, the said film that we're going to talk about today, but also to have our guests on today as well. So without further ado, I'm not going to keep us. I'm going to talk briefly about the film and then introduce our guests. So here we go. So the movie in question, of course, is Orphan, which tells a story of a husband and wife who recently lose a baby and uh, later on adopt a 9-year-old girl who has a lot more to her than meets the eye, shall we say. And as I said, it was released in 2009, in summer of 2009, in fact. And the guest who we are, fortunate to have on today, provided his talents as composer. But let me talk a little more in depth about our said guests. So they have in the industry, they have brought their talents not only as a composer but also as an editor. In fact, they are typically, playing dual roles on many of their films that they have worked on. Just to give you just a taste of some of those said films that they've played those dual roles on. You have the usual suspects, X-Men 2, Superman Returns, Valkyrie, and of course, Jack the Giant Killer. However, if that weren't impressive enough, today's guest is also an Oscar winner, earning the award for Best Film Editing for Bohemian Rhapsody. So, without further ado, I like to welcome, back to the show, Mr. John Ottman. Let me bring him on now. Give me one moment. See if we can get him on here. Hold on.
There I am. I think. Hello.
Hello. Hold on. Let's see. There we go. So yes, hello, John. Good morning. As I said, on your part, your neck of the woods, so to speak. Hope all is well. How you been? I know it's been a minute. Oh, hold on. I think we. Hold on one second. The pleasure of doing live shows.
I'm here.
Okay, I think we had. All right, there we go. Go ahead. Hold on one second.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
For a second, see if we can get him back. I know we were having a quick glitch there. All right, go ahead, John. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Yes, we are
Can you
here.
hear me?
Yes, hello.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
It looked like the mic was muted or something.
Yeah. So yeah, the wonders of live programming and live streaming. But yes, welcome to the show.
All right, thanks.
But I guess I'll start first. It's crazy to believe it's been 15 years since this film, and
Yeah.
even I know, um, even to this day, a lot of it still still is effective in terms of what it sets out to do, and as a whether you want to coin it as a horror film or as a thriller.
Mhm.
So I know oftentimes with you, as I said, you carry dual roles oftentimes on the projects that you do, and I know these days, we've talked about it off stage that you've tried to steer clear of doing both at the same time recently. um, can you talk a bit
Right.
of how that involvement started with this film?
Well, I'd done a number of Joel Silver films, and I think this was my third film. I could be wrong with Jean Massera, the director. I'd done House of Wax with him, and I did Unknown with him. I think that was before this. It might be after. I might completely
Yeah.
jumble for me, but I'd done at least a couple of films with him, and so I was, it was sort of I wouldn't say an automatic thing, but I was, just brought in, and hey, you want to do this, and. I remember watching it, and it was the temp music on it, the temp score as they call it, was so in your face, silly clunks and bangs and scares. It was so dumb that it even fooled me that the film was terrible, and I was so embarrassed to be working on the movie. I didn't tell anybody I knew that I was working on this film. And but once I stripped the score out and then watched the film without its influence at all, then I realized, oh, this actually is a pretty interesting film. And it's not really. I mean, it is horror, but not. It's a thoughtful movie, and it has a emotional reality to it. And so I decided, look, I can elevate this thing by making us believe in this world and scoring it in not the typical horror way, except when all the stops are pulled out later, of course. But I wanted to be thoughtful, and I wanted to feel for this family and the relationship of the mother with the deaf girl, Max, I think her name was. And so I set out
Yeah.
to write a theme for Max, and which basically is sort of the bonding theme between her and her mother. And then I noticed that obviously watching the movie, that the mother was playing the piano a couple times, and so I thought, what a cool idea would be to have whatever she's playing on the piano be sort of her theme of reflection. And so I wrote this whole way too long overture for her theme, and then we applied that to the piano, and we put in later the music she's playing on the piano, which she wasn't playing on the set, and it sort of gave this cohesion to the movie and made you more, again, believe and take the film seriously, because I've always a big believer that if you can make the audience believe and feel for your characters, the more freaked out and scared you're going to be later, when they're facing a killer or something, because it's not farcical, but you're more scared because it's real. So and there's more stakes and a connection between you and the characters. So that
For sure, for sure.
kind of transformed the landscape, at least the psychological landscape of the film. And I did the same thing when they met Esther. I made it a very thoughtful, warm, inviting, cozy kind of music. Because so when they walk in that room in the classroom and see her, it's a warm, and there's nothing threatening. There's no weirdness about it at all. Um,
Right.
if you can
I
even
mean,
hear
I
that,
was going to
one of my
ask that
complaints about
because
horror. Oh,
I was going
sorry.
to
As
say
I
I was
said,
going
one
to
of my
ask
complaints
that
about
is
Orphan. We have a delay here. Well, let me get this out. One of my complaints about
go for it,
the
go for it.
film is that when they did the mix for the film, the music was just so buried, all the nuances and the details, and so. I'm not saying that it's a composer. I'm saying that's a filmmaker, because I often am the one that want to bring the score down and intertwine it with things. But I watched it about a year ago, and was surprised just how you really got to, even if you crank the movie, you can't even hear a lot of the detail in the score. So it's frustrating for me, but it's still, nevertheless, it gives a subliminal taste to the film, I should say. Good taste.
For sure, for sure. And in speaking further to that, as you were saying, a lot of times I feel like with a lot of with some films these days, especially if we're talking about genre related fare in the horror realm, I feel like it has become a lost art of trying to, as you said, trying to find that nuance of like not being like bopped over the head in terms of like,
Right.
okay, this is how you should feel in this moment. And
Because it makes a
um
joke of the movie itself, kind of belittling the any quality the film has. I mean, maybe the film's a piece of shit all around, so why not just do surface clunks and bangs? But for most of these times, there is something redeeming about the story that the filmmaker is telling, even though they are setting out to make a thriller or a horror movie. You can make it feel deeper and come away with it feeling like like again, like you believed in that world, no matter how insane it was. And if you just do surface level music, I don't know. I have a hard time taking the films as seriously.
Yeah, for sure. So I was gonna say in speaking to that further, of trying to find that balance, because as you said, there are those moments where I feel like the music gives us, I guess you can say a glimpse into the state of mind of those characters of,
Hmm.
still having a sense of hope, but there are some peppered feelings of dread that are there, especially when you start to peel back the surface of Esther and all those qualities that she starts to reveal as the film
Right.
continues or progresses. Can you talk about like trying to finesse those transitions, because there are a lot of moments where you have those warm moments, so to speak, but
Right.
she provides a quick glimpse of her true intentions in some moments as well.
Um, well, I mean, the obviously the film itself does that, so I can lay back.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't want to herald everything with the music. In fact,
Yeah.
less is always more, in my opinion. But I had a couple motifs in the score. Or I should say almost like sound motifs, like Jaws has its dun 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 dun, but I had sort of this I can't like it's almost like a large wood castanet that kind of goes, you know, and I had that placed around surreptitiously around Esther, and I think that was sort of like the foreshadowing that something is fucked up, and then I just played on that more and more as things become unraveled. It's one of those nuances that you can hopefully you can hear in the score on the film. You can on the soundtrack, of course, but. Um, and just building in atonal discordant moments in within a, uh, a chordal, like you can take a beautiful piece and then you sort of add something that seems like it's rubbing the wrong way inside, so you feel uneasy but it's still playing the surface nice piece, and so I would do things like that to kind of, so in other words, I was playing both sides with the music. I mean, there's the Esther we think we know, and the other Esther that we hope we don't know, and I would sort of intertwine those feelings at the same time.
Gotcha. And to do a dive into the instruments themselves, and listening to it, and the qualities, the sound qualities that you're hearing, where there seem to be some elements of, and it's kind of hard to explain, but elements of, I guess you can say, youthfulness, where you, without knowing the twist that we get at the end, of having kind of like a twisted
Right.
youthful type of
Yeah. Well,
musical
in a sense, and
tone. Yeah.
right. I don't know how much longer I
So are
played the
you able?
Esther. Oh, sorry. I don't know how long I put up with
No, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
played the Okay, the Esther warm music that was in the school at first when they go to see her, or the convent, whatever that place is. I carried on through with the drive home and so forth. I don't know how long I carried it in the house, um, but um, but you're right. That was sort of the idea to accentuate innocence, which of course is usually associated with youth. Um, and I mean, there really wasn't a lot I had to say with the music to convince everyone that she was young, because that was sort of like there was no thought that she wasn't. That's why the twist works so well, because you would never know that. In fact, I don't think I even know that. I think that was a reshoot or something. I can't remember. There was some we reshot the end of the film, and I don't know if that revelation was the same as it was in the final movie. So. Um, but it worked pretty well, even though my montage music for the revelation you can barely hear.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I
That
think
going back to
originally I'm
the
thinking
qualities
back
that you
now.
have.
Sorry, oh sorry. I was just thinking back really quick,
No,
trying
go
to
ahead. Go
remember.
for it.
It was like 15 years ago. What the ending used to be. I believe the ending was she she doesn't die. She kills everybody. Um, and the police arrive and they have like a Sunset Boulevard scene where she walks down the stairs, almost like I'm ready for my close up. And that was the end of the film. And it was obviously, that's kind of cool, but it was unsatisfying to test audiences. And so they realized they had to kill her off in a very um, satisfying way. And so that whole thing in the ice in the end, and the battle there, that was complete reshoot at the last second. They went and built that whole thing on a set and shot that. So I don't remember if the revelation about her age was part of that reshoot or not. Believe it was. It might have been that she uh, I think she still was older in the end, but you didn't know why. And so then they built in the call to this institute, and this phone call with this doctor explaining, and that was also a reshoot.
Gotcha. Well, in with that in mind, and talking about as the film's progressing, and we're talking about those elements in which the horror, or the what starts hitting the fan as the bodies start to pile, so to speak. um I know with the filmmaker, she has been it's been quoted that there was a concerted effort to be able to distinguish it as not being a drama, because there are elements of it that could make it fall within that realm. And she it's been quoted that there was an effort to have some jump scares, so to speak. So are you
Who's
able
she?
to
The director's a guy.
talk about? No, that's what I was saying, in terms of what was being done with the jump scares, that there was an
Oh,
effort to ensure that there was that you were able to distinguish it as a quote unquote thriller or horror film versus a
oh,
drama,
okay.
by having those
I
jump
mean,
scares. Was there any discussion about how those will work?
no, not really. I mean, that sounds like an obvious thing that if you're going to have a film transition and start realizing it's a scary movie, and there's a lot of shit hitting the fan, that you're going to have those scares. It's just, do you do those scares tastefully, or do you do them in the typical, big slam sound effect way, And so we do have those scares and those flourishes that make you uneasy. And but again, it was all attempted to do, from my point of view, in a context of not feeling it was stupid scares. They did add some things in the sound effects, and they timed it with the music, so it sounds like I'm doing it. Where in the opening hospital scene where she's giving birth, this horrific scene, you know, um,
Yeah.
they did some weird things there with the sound effects. They would I did some really cool things with the score, and but then right when I would do the cool thing on top of that, they would put like a sound effect at like 17 million dB decibels over what I did, and so it's completely out of whack. And so I always feel like embarrassed that I want to tell everyone, hey, I didn't do those. Those weren't part of the score, you know, because I think the music for the birth and the opening is creepy and freaky and disturbing as it was, you know. But if there was like a light flare or something, they would put a sound effect on it, which is cool. But I think they should have put it in the pocket of the music as opposed to, you know, push down the music and then have this big sound effect over a light, you know. But um, you know, it's part of the direction of the final mix of the movie, and how to tell that story effectively. And you know, everyone has their opinion. I wouldn't have mixed it that way. But,
Well, one thing that I do like to get into, especially with what we've been doing with these anniversary episodes, so to speak, is being able to also reflect on. And I know this about you as well, because I know you're a perfectionist about what you're doing, at whether it's as an editor or a composer. So are there any things about it that you are, and you've touched on it, but then some things that you're proud of, in terms of what you've done, or maybe some things where you look back on it and it's like, oh, I wish I had a little more time to do X, Y, Z, or approach this a different way, perhaps.
yeah, I mean, I'm proud of having, I guess, transformed the film from being a clunker, you know, clank bang, stupid, horror film into something thoughtful that you could believe in, and elevate it, I guess I should say, you know, and make it feel like it's a cut above your typical horror movie. And I think I was successful in that by creating these empathetic
Yeah.
scenes with the mother and Max the child, and really having it be a cornerstone of the film is that music and not the horrific music. So that when things horrifically happened, it was more scary, you know, because you're basically countering all of that goodwill music, you know. I guess aside from the mix, my
Sure.
I what I was I wish I had had more instruments for the reshoots, because in the whole snow battle and all that, you know, that was a quick going back to Seattle where I scored it, and it was a package deal. I had, you know, no money left, and so I had to embellish a lot with synthesized strings, sampled strings, and so forth. And it sounds fine, everything, but it would have sounded a lot better had it been with a full orchestra and not trying to supplement with too many fake instruments. That was I wasn't happy about that, but I had no choice. So because I wanted to have an orchestral sound at the end, I didn't want it just to be all electronic. So I guess that was my regret, as it were. But otherwise, you know, I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah, I'd have to
Hey,
watch it
we
again to
wouldn't.
find out
Yeah.
the parts I want to, you know, kick myself, but I can't remember what those parts are until I would watch it fresh. Yeah.
No, I hear you. But no, I mean, we wouldn't be here obviously if it wasn't a film that is a fun film. And I remember watching it in the theater, when it first opened, and it was it the great audience that I had, and watching it, responding to all the parts that you would feel. I would assume, as a filmmaker, as anyone working on the film, that you would hope that the audiences would respond to. So,
Yeah, I
but
remember
yeah,
getting calls
uh,
after it was released and going, "You scored this movie? You didn't tell us that." And I go, "Yeah, I didn't want to tell anybody I was working on it until it came out." So, of course, now it's like it's such a well-regarded movie that you know. And I know I'm gonna pat myself on the back a little bit for that. I think I contributed, but you know,
for sure you
so
did.
now I'm not so ashamed that I did the film. You know.
Well, with that being said, I'm not gonna keep you. any longer today, John. As always appreciate you, coming on and being able to steal a couple of minutes with you, so to speak, to be able to talk about
Yeah,
your work. Um, are you
my
able
pleasure.
to tease perhaps what you're up to currently, or are you still kind of hush hush
Well,
on anything that
I'm
you can share that you
rejiggering
are doing?
my. No. I'm an open book. I'm rejiggering my life because it's I was doing this for 20 something years, and I just don't want to be in the room anymore, 14 hours a day, stressed out over you know, I just rather go travel and do what I want to do. And doing what I want to do is direct my own projects. And so that was the game plan all along, was to, make my nest egg, knock on wood, and be able to afford the time to develop projects to direct. And of course, getting a film off the ground is like winning the lottery. And so I'm completely sober about that. I know that. And so if it goes, great. If it doesn't, then I'm not going to do it again. I'm okay. Um, so I have a couple of things that I'm trying to get off the ground, and in like a financing stage on one of them, and the other is sort of in infancy. We're all working on these things, right? So they're all little pans in the fire, or fire in the pans, I should say, that are smoldering, and I'm trying to have happen. And then there's always an editing job everyone wants me to do because of the Oscar, and I just, for better or for worse, I've said no to all of them because I just don't want to go do that. But never say never, right? So there is a big project that I might be working on, but I don't know yet. So
Okay.
that's
All right. Awesome.
me in a
Well,
nutshell.
I would ask you where I would ask where folks can find you, but I know we were talking about this offline, and uh you don't do all the social stuff. You try to
Oh
steer
no.
clear of it.
All I do is vent on on Facebook about the state of our world, and that's all I do. I mean, it's yeah. Even a text sound stresses me out from a friend because it's like I think it's all those years of a text sound meant some sort of problem on something I was working on, because it's high tension. You got the world on your shoulders, especially when I was doing the editing and composing and producing like a tentpole movie, and every text or phone call sound was just disturbed me.
Putting out a
And so
fire. It's like putting out a fire.
yeah, and I've held on to that. No matter what the text sound is, I get on. And so, but I don't like talking to a lot of people. So, but I do. I mean, I go to lunches and people want to go. I do my. I'm not that I'm antisocial at all. It's just there's so much time, only so much time in a day in your life, So
For sure. For sure. Well, with that being said, as always, I love to thank John Ottman for coming on and reflecting on his work on 2009, man, 15 years, 2009,
uh,
Orphan. With that out of the way, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I'm your host, Brandon Troy. Till next time. Bye
thank you.
now.
Bye. Okay.